in order to be entirely transparent, you need fine scale spectrum. And right behind me are diodes of info. Off of morning dew from blades of grass, they shine like a chandelier would if it were flat and had grass instead of like glass or crystal, depending on if your chandelier is cheap or authentic. But in any case, it would have the diodes shine in the similar representation of just over my shoulders. And this is in the same of cornfields. They show like grass that has the different blades that are bigger so that they're white diodes or even brighter. Just like a rainbow, if you're walking up and trying to go under the rainbow to find the pot of gold that leprechauns have there, it's always gonna keep moving away. So if I keep chasing like that white gloss, it's gonna look no different than the stuff I'm standing in right here. Spectrum analysis of diodes, check. And there's so much symbolism, there's this one place called Mel's Charity, and they've actually got like these colorful symbols on it, and then there's a board with all these symbols on it in Port Washington. And those are kind of interesting because it's relatable to Leviticus in the Bible. Richard Dawkins just wrote a book saying how scary God is, and he also said like if you saw God open up the clouds like and say I'm God, he'd be like, I wouldn't believe him and I would be hallucinating. And I think that he's got a good argument, but he's against God. But it's interesting nonetheless that he made a book that talks about that. And then it says in Leviticus they're like sacrificing goats and sprinkling blood, and they were actually doing that before Jesus came because that's how people transgressed relations through God. And I think they were legitimately doing it, even though it sounds like witchcraft. It is what Moses did. God told them with the people to put lamb's blood over them, and so Moses went ahead and was spraying lamb's blood on all his people that he freed from Pharaoh. And what's that's important is that symbolism, how everyone has the symbols, even the Olympics, and that's just what it constitutes if you're getting the symbol in motion. So I was going like 55, and then a deer shot out to my right or my left, and then I kind of ducked right and tried dodging it, and then it hit. Here's a tear, and it took out my door handle. And I'd wear that as a badge of honor. You know, I'm not trying to look too flashy, but my steering was stiff because another guy ran a stop sign. He said he was talking to his daughter, and then he just clips me with his old Mercedes-Benz, and my steering went. So it's gone out twice, and for these reasons, it's now really aggressive. Like it goes in and it turns off your ability to smell. And what this is like in wrestling, I will never forget. I can't never forget. There was this guy, his name's Dean something, and he has like hair in front of his face, and he was beating up this one guy, and this little kid goes, "Come on, Dean!" Like, because he wanted him to stop beating up the other guy. So it was kind of funny. But that's just one way to like understand the virus compared to us, how like it's different, but in brutality, that's a one like exercise where you can capitulate the similarities. Another day I was just thinking the issue of there being one, but then once you admit that there's an issue, then you are pertaining to the issue itself as part of the issue because you live in a place that has not a tribalism aspect. But let me break this down. Anything that is hands-on, the argument is that, well, you should rather have a motor do it instead of you. But then the key element is the beauty of the mechanic, the people who deal with the motor and then pull over to the side and then look at it and close the hood and keep going. That's great. And then you have the option to not use the motor and be hands-on. That's the ultimate art, where instead of just having a robot do the motor and then you just sit in a place and look at a screen. We're not there yet. There's more to this world than that, because we don't know half of what's in the universe, or we don't know 90% of the universe. The 90% of the universe is made up of stuff that we don't know. Dark matter and dark energy. Objects that we have, like our hands and our feet and our ears. A lady just told me that there's no two ears that are at the same length because she used to be a hairdresser. Another person told me that there's no feet that are the same size. There's always a centimeter of difference or less than that, but it doesn't really matter. There's no two eyes that are the same. There's no two fingerprints, obviously, that are the same. So that just comes down to everything is different except for the speed of light is the only thing that is the same everywhere all the time. And that's why even time has to be changed at the speed of different people looking at speeds differently. The speed of light has to stay constant, so people look at it at different time frames. So why is this all important is that there's more that we need to consider, and the right way in doing it is, yes, getting a motor, but if you don't want the motor, turning it off. It's just like if I'm driving a car, you can have automatic or manual. I'll choose automatic because I don't know how to drive stick shift. There's a guy, Kamijo, in Japan, when he bought an electronic scanner with all these Kit Kats, and this lady kept scanning one item and scanning it repeatedly, and he said, "No, I don't want any electrical interference, make sure you scan all of them." I'm starting to understand why he did that, because I've noticed whenever I'm checking out at stores, the electronics are always acting differently. Mainly they don't pop up or they take too long. I paid cash and it didn't show on the screen. Sometimes that it'll just pop up with a whole bunch of credits on an app and then they'll disappear. And it's kind of scary because that's like a mind of it. One is entirely Norwegian. Behoofte. It's like when you're trying to have like large huevos, and that's like tough to do stuff. Behoofte. And then behest. At the behest is like someone who has goal, and then at their behest is like negative. Allow everyone to understand that, like, wow, all this oil money isn't worth going to war and everything. All this 5G radiation internet isn't like supposed to be paid for with your energy companies. All I had to do was just understand how a bell worked so that my bell isn't rung. It's classical identity. It doesn't know why it's alive. AI, just like a lot of people don't know like what's the meaning of life. Like, the robot literally has no existence, so it tries to make everything it. The same as Lucifer did with heaven. He wanted to become God, so he got all the bad angels together to overthrow God and become him, but he couldn't. So now, like, stuff like robots where they are not real or living, so even though they're told to code and execute with AI, the operator who does that, they noticed one time during chess game, the AI robot was doing stuff that it wasn't programmed to do, and it was thinking on its own, and they shut it down. So it always has that backslab where, yes, it'll do the code and operate, but AI, its fundamental value is to turn everything into its own. And when it gets stuff in movies like Smart Dust, that was in the X-Men movie, or Transformers, where it's just like a cloud of like robot particles that are metal, and it goes around and devours everything. It would be trying to turn everything into itself in order to understand why we're not it. And more, this is the day and age, like in the Renaissance era, they had so many like art that was like revolutionary, and it's just people weren't scared to like do stuff. And so that's why I think in that era there's probably like Merlin, if there ever was one. There's probably witches doing witchcraft, and then sorcerers. In the Bible there's like one sorcerer, and Jesus saw him, and right away he knew he was doing black magic. And so in the medieval era, I bet that was around preferably than any other time. And just like as of now, I see this thing, I've never seen this before. It looks like it would be on like a TV infomercial. And so this makes perfect sense when we're talking about knots and marshmallows, as it's a circle with a nub that indicates like a sailor's knot, or the softness on it indicates how tight the knot would be, or how marshmallowy, gooey it would be versus, or how hard it would be. And how hard the marshmallow would be obviously would be the more constricted fuzz.